The morning shift on Consortium Station Epsilon 7 began like any other for Corporal Taemin. He walked through the sterile white corridors, nodding to the various alien species that passed him. Most ignored him. Some looked at him with what might have been pity. Humans were still new to the galactic community, only 50 years since first contact, and the galaxy had decided humans were too soft for real work. Taemin didn't mind. He'd been a soldier on Earth for 8 years before joining the Consortium security forces. He knew what he was capable of. What others thought didn't matter much to him. He did his job, kept people safe, and went home to his small quarters at the end of each shift. That piece ended when Commander Vrel called him into the operations center. Vrel was a Kanthari, a species that looked like walking crystals with too many arms. She seemed agitated, her facets flickering with different colors. That usually meant trouble. "Corporal Taemin," Vrel said without preamble. "We have a situation. The Valoran Princess Gina is arriving in 6 hours. Her security detail was killed 3 days ago in what appears to be a pirate attack. No Valoran ships can reach us before the summit begins. We need someone to serve as her escort until proper arrangements can be made." Taemin processed this information quickly. The Valoran Empire controlled 3 star systems and had enough military power to flatten entire planets. Their princess traveling without proper security was dangerous. Very dangerous. "What about the Kanthari Elite Guard?" Taemin asked. "Or the Theran Peacekeepers?" Vrel's colors shifted to an embarrassed purple. "All assigned to other delegates. The summit has stretched our resources thin. You're the only qualified security officer available." The reality hit Taemin immediately. He wasn't chosen because he was good. He was chosen because he was all they had left. The human. The expendable one. "I understand," Taemin said simply. "I'll prepare immediately." Vrel looked surprised, probably expecting him to protest. "The Valoran ambassador is already furious about this arrangement. Be prepared for resistance from the princess herself." Taemin nodded and left the operations center. As he walked to the armory, he passed a group of Theron soldiers. They were tall, muscular beings, covered in blue scales. One of them saw him and laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Hey, human, I heard they gave you princess duty. Try not to cry if someone looks at you too hard." The others joined in the laughter. Taemin kept walking. He'd heard worse. On Earth, he'd served in disaster zones where people screamed at him while he pulled their children from rubble. Words from strangers meant nothing. In the armory, he requisitioned a standard sidearm and a small blade. The armory officer, a bored-looking Felian with 6 eyes, barely glanced at him. "That's all you're taking? No plasma rifle? No shock grenades?" "Don't need them," Taemin replied. "Your funeral," the Felian muttered. Taemin returned to his quarters and reviewed everything he could find about Princess Gina. She was 24 years old in Earth years. Third in line to the Valoran throne, educated in politics, mathematics, and military strategy. Never left her home system before this trip. The files showed a young woman with sharp eyes and a serious expression. She looked like someone who didn't suffer fools. He also reviewed the attack report on her security detail. Something felt wrong about it. Pirates rarely attacked diplomatic vessels. The penalties were too severe, and the attack had been perfectly timed to leave her without protection just before the summit. Taemin made notes on his datapad, marking inconsistencies. He'd investigate later. For now, he needed to focus on keeping the princess alive. 6 hours later, he stood in Docking Bay 3 as the Valoran shuttle arrived. The doors opened, with a hiss of pressurized air. Princess Gina emerged wearing flowing robes of deep purple, the royal color of her people. She was tall, nearly 6 feet, with pale skin and dark hair styled in an elaborate arrangement. Her eyes were completely black, a trait of her species. Those eyes swept across the docking bay and landed on Taemin with clear disapproval. Behind her came Ambassador Kwansik, an older Valoran male with silver in his hair. His face was twisted in anger, as he approached Commander Vrel. "This is unacceptable." Quansik's voice echoed through the bay. "You assign a human to protect the third heir to the Valoran throne? Humans are Class D protected species. They're barely capable of protecting themselves." Vrel's colors flickered apologetically. "Ambassador, I assure you this is temporary. The summit begins in 72 hours. Anything could happen in that time." Quansik jabbed a finger toward Taemin. "Look at him. He's small, weak, probably never seen real combat. This is an insult to the Empire." Through all of this, Princess Gina said nothing. She simply stared at Taemin with those bottomless black eyes, evaluating him like one might evaluate a broken tool. Taemin stepped forward and bowed in the Valoran style, hand over heart. "Your Highness, I am Corporal Taemin. I'll be your security escort during your stay on this station. I understand this arrangement is not ideal. I will do my best to ensure your safety." Gina's voice was cold and sharp as a blade. "My best warriors died protecting me. Warriors who trained their entire lives for combat. What can you possibly offer that they could not?" It was a fair question. Taemin met her eyes directly. "I can't offer strength like your warriors had, or their combat training. What I can offer is this. I will not stop. No matter what happens, I will not stop trying to keep you safe. That's what humans do. We don't give up." Something flickered in Gina's eyes. Not respect, but perhaps curiosity. She turned to Ambassador Quansik. "We have no choice. I will tolerate this arrangement for now." The ambassador looked like he wanted to argue more, but Gina raised a hand, silencing him. "Show me to my quarters, Corporal." Rude. Taemin led her through the station. Behind them, he could hear various aliens whispering and laughing. A human guarding a princess. This will end badly. The Empire must be desperate. If Gina heard them, she gave no sign. She walked with perfect posture, her face showing nothing. When they reached her assigned quarters in the diplomatic section, Taemin ran a security scan of the room. "I'll be stationed outside your door. If you need anything, just call. I recommend staying inside tonight. Tomorrow, we can tour the station under controlled conditions. You give me recommendations?" Gina's tone was icy. "I am not a child to be managed. Human. No, Your Highness. But I am responsible for your security. That means sometimes giving advice you might not want to hear." Gina studied him for a long moment. "You're either brave or foolish. I haven't decided which." She entered her quarters, and the door sealed behind her. Taemin took up his position outside. Down the corridor, he spotted two maintenance workers who seemed far too interested in Gina's door. When they saw him watching, they quickly moved away. Taemin made a note on his data pad. Something was wrong here. The attack on her guards, the suspicious timing. Now suspicious workers near her quarters. This assignment was going to be more complicated than anyone thought. But that was fine. Complicated was something Taemin understood. On Earth, he'd specialized in situations where everything went wrong. Where the plan failed, and you had to improvise. Where giving up meant people died. He settled in to watch the corridor. Whoever was planning something would reveal themselves eventually. They always did. And when they did, they'd learned something about humans that the galaxy seemed to have forgotten. Humans from Earth didn't come from a peaceful world. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day. A world of predators and disasters and wars. They'd survived all of it by being stubborn, adaptable, and absolutely relentless when protecting their own. And Taemin had just made Princess Gina his responsibility. Which meant, whether she liked it or not, she was now under the protection of a species the galaxy had badly underestimated. The night shift began. Taemin watched, waited, and planned. The diplomatic reception hall glittered with lights from a dozen different worlds. Delegates from across the consortium mingled, discussing trade agreements and peace treaties. Princess Gina stood near the center, surrounded by admirers and politicians hoping to gain favor with the Valoran Empire. Tae-min stayed 5 steps behind her, watching everything. Most people ignored him. To them, he was just a human, barely worth noticing. That suited Tae-min fine. It let him observe without interference. And what he observed troubled him deeply. 3 times in the past hour, someone had positioned themselves with a clear line of sight to the princess. Each time, Tae-min had casually stepped into the angle, blocking it. Each time, the person had moved away, frustrated. To anyone else, it looked like random movement. To Tae-min, it looked like reconnaissance for an attack. During a lull in conversation, Tae-min leaned closer to Gina. "Your Highness, I recommend we move toward the east wall. Better sight lines." Gina glanced at him with irritation. "I am perfectly fine where I am, Corporal." "Yes, Your Highness. However, the balcony above us provides multiple attack angles. The east wall has no such vulnerability." She studied him for a moment. Those black eyes unreadable. Then, without acknowledging his suggestion, she gracefully excused herself from the conversation and moved toward the east wall. Tae-min followed, noting with satisfaction that the suspicious observers seemed annoyed by the change in position. An hour later, as the reception wound down, a drunk Theran delegate stumbled toward Gina. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall, and clearly had consumed too much of whatever his species drank for pleasure. Ambassador Kwansik moved to intercept, but the Theran shoved him aside. "Valoran princess," the Theran slurred. "Why so serious? Come, drink with me. Celebrate peace." He reached out to grab Gina's arm. Tae-min moved. One moment he was behind the princess. The next, he was between her and the Theran, his hand catching the alien's wrist before it touched Gina. The Theran outweighed Tae-min by at least 200 pounds. But Tae-min's grip was precise, pressing on a nerve cluster. The Theran's eyes widened in pain. "You dare." "The princess does not wish to be touched," Tae-min said calmly. "Please step back, sir." For a moment, it looked like the Theran might attack. His muscles tensed. Then he saw something in Tae-min's eyes that made him hesitate. Tae-min wasn't angry or aggressive. He was simply ready. Ready for whatever came next. The Theran stepped back, cradling his wrist. "Crazy human," he muttered, stumbling away. Ambassador Kwansik approached, his expression complex. "That was adequate, Corporal." Coming from the ambassador, that was practically high praise. Gina said nothing. But as they left the reception, she asked, "How did you know he would back down?" "I didn't," Tae-min admitted. "But I was prepared for either outcome." "You would have fought him? He could have killed you with one hand?" "Probably. But he would have had to go through me first." That was enough to make him reconsider. Gina was quiet for a long moment. "You're either insane or something else. I still haven't determined which." That night, Tae-min was reviewing security footage in his small office near Gina's quarters when she emerged unexpectedly. She wore simpler clothes now, not the formal robes from earlier. "Can't sleep, Your Highness?" Tae-min asked, standing. "The beds here are too soft. And stop calling me that every sentence. Your Highness once per conversation is sufficient. After that, my name is acceptable." "Yes, your yes, Princess Gina." She looked at his screens, which showed various camera angles of the station. "You're reviewing the reception?" "Yes, I noticed some concerning patterns. People who seemed too interested in your location." Gina pulled up a chair without asking permission. "Show me." For the next hour, Tae-min walked her through what he'd observed. The repeated positioning, the coordinated movements, the way certain people had communicated through hand signals that most wouldn't notice. "You saw all this in real time?" Gina asked, her voice showing surprise for the first time. "Pattern recognition. Humans are good at it. We evolved hunting prey that tried to hide. We learned to spot the small details that didn't fit. The galaxy considers humans weak, Too emotional. Too fragile. Tae-min smiled slightly. We are emotional. That's true. But that's not the same as weak. On Earth, emotions kept us alive. Fear made us cautious. Anger gave us strength to fight. Love made us protect our families. Gina leaned back in her chair. Tell me about Earth. Your home world. The galaxy knows very little about it. So Taemin told her. He described a planet where almost everything was dangerous, where storms could destroy entire cities, where animals hunted humans for food, where humans hunted each other in terrible wars, where diseases killed millions. And yet humans survived, thrived, built civilizations, reached for the stars. We're classified as a Class D species because we feel too much, Tae-min explained. We form attachments quickly. We care about strangers. We cry at sad stories. The galaxy sees this as a fatal weakness. They think emotions make you vulnerable. And you disagree? I think emotions make us human. They're why we try so hard. Why we fight impossible odds. Why we don't give up, even when we should. He paused. My sister was killed in a terrorist attack when I was 20. I wasn't there to protect her. After that, I joined disaster relief. Then the military. Then the consortium. Because I never wanted to feel that helpless again. Gina was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer. I have 2 older siblings. Both are warriors. Strong and proud. I was always the scholar. The thinker. My father respects strength above all else. I've spent my life trying to prove I matter. Despite not being a fighter. You matter because of who you are, not what you can do in combat. That's a very human perspective. Maybe, but it's true. Gina stood to leave, then paused at the door. Tae-min, thank you for tonight. For actually seeing threats, instead of just standing around, looking impressive. After she left, Tae-min returned to the footage. He'd been careful not to worry her, but the patterns he saw were worse than he'd indicated. This wasn't just reconnaissance. This was preparation for an assassination. And it was being coordinated by multiple people. The next morning, Gina insisted on touring the station's cultural district. Ambassador Kwan-sik was against it, but Gina overruled him. I came here to experience other cultures, not hide in my room. As they walked through markets filled with goods from 100 worlds, Tae-min maintained constant vigilance. Gina seemed to be enjoying herself, examining strange artifacts and speaking with merchants. She had a quick mind and asked intelligent questions about everything she saw. Then Tae-min spotted them. 3 figures moving through the crowd with too much purpose. They were converging on Gina's position from different angles. All 3 had their hands near concealed weapons. Tae-min touched his communicator. Control. I need security to Market Sector 7. Possible, hostile action. Acknowledged. Units en route, ETA 5 minutes. 5 minutes was too long. The attackers would strike in less than 1. Tae-min moved closer to Gina, his body language casual but his muscles coiled. Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. She saw the tension in his eyes and nodded once. They turned toward the exit. The attackers moved. All 3 pulled weapons simultaneously, some kind of energy pistols. The crowd screamed and scattered. Tae-min grabbed Gina and pulled her behind a merchant's stall, just as the first shot burned through the air where her head had been. He drew his own weapon and returned fire. Not to kill, but to drive them back, to buy time. 1 attacker circled left. Another went right. The 3rd charged straight at them. They were professionals, coordinating their attack perfectly. The charging attacker vaulted over the stall. Tae-min met him in close combat, deflecting the weapon and driving his elbow into the attacker's throat. The alien went down, gasping. Tae-min took his weapon and tossed it far away. Shots came from the left. Taemin pushed Gina down and rolled, coming up with his pistol aimed. He fired once, hitting the attacker's weapon hand. The alien dropped his gun with a cry of pain. The third attacker had Gina in his sights. Taemin didn't have time to aim. He threw his body between them just as the weapon fired. The energy blast caught him in the shoulder, burning through his uniform. Pain exploded through his arm, but Taemin stayed on his feet. He fired with his offhand, hitting the attacker in the leg. Station security finally arrived, weapons drawn. They secured the 3 attackers, while medics rushed to Taemin. Gina knelt beside him, her face showing an emotion he hadn't seen before. Genuine concern. You stepped in front of a plasma shot. You could have died. Taemin grimaced, as the medic sprayed something that numbed the pain. That's the job. No. That's insanity. But her voice wasn't angry. It was something else. Something like respect. Later, after the medics had treated his wound and security had secured the area, Gina visited Taemin in the medical center. Ambassador Kwansik was with her. We interrogated the attackers, Kwansik said, his earlier hostility toward Taemin gone. They're part of something called the Kaleth Syndicate, a criminal organization. They were paid to kill the princess. To start a war, Taemin said quietly. Kill her. Frame someone else for it. Watch the Valoran Empire retaliate. Kwansik nodded grimly. That's our assessment as well. Gina looked at Taemin. You knew this might happen. That's why you were so careful at the reception. Oh. I suspected. The attack on your guards was too convenient. Someone wanted you vulnerable. And yet you accepted this assignment, knowing you might face trained killers. Taemin shrugged, then winced as the movement pulled his injured shoulder. Someone had to keep you safe. Might as well be me. Gina exchanged a glance with Ambassador Kwansik. When she looked back at Taemin, something had changed in her expression. Perhaps the galaxy has misunderstood humans. You're not weak. You're just different. We're different, Taemin agreed. But that doesn't mean harmless. 3 days after the attack, Taemin stood in Ambassador Kwansik's office, his injured shoulder mostly healed, thanks to advanced alien medicine. Gina sat in a chair nearby, her expression troubled. Between them, a holographic display showed the interrogation results. The syndicate is larger than we thought, Kwansik said grimly. They have operatives throughout the station. The interrogations revealed something worse. They know we discovered their plan. And now they're accelerating their timeline. Meaning? Gina asked. Meaning they'll try again. Soon. And next time they'll send more than 3 attackers. Kwansik looked at Taemin. Station security can't be trusted completely. We don't know who else is compromised. Taemin studied the data. We need to leave the station. Gather evidence about the syndicate's operations. Expose them publicly. That's the only way to end this. Leave? Kwansik looked shocked. The summit begins in 48 hours. The princess must attend. The summit is the perfect opportunity for another attack. Taemin said. Thousands of delegates. Impossible to secure completely. They'll strike there if we give them the chance. Gina stood and walked to the window overlooking the station. He's right. I won't let them turn my death into the spark for war. We leave. Tonight. Princess, I must protest. Your protest is noted, Ambassador. Gina's voice carried the weight of royal command. But this is my decision. Corporal Taemin and I will depart quietly. Tell everyone I'm ill and confined to quarters. That gives us time. Kwansik looked like he wanted to argue more, but finally nodded. Leave that to me, Taemin said. He had an idea. 6 hours later, Taemin and Gina slipped aboard a small courier ship in the maintenance bay. Taemin had called in a favor from an old friend, a human pilot named Bo-Ra, who asked no questions and owed him her life from a previous incident. The ship was old, barely held together, but it was fast and unregistered with station traffic control. This is your plan? Gina asked, looking at the rusted interior. We're flying in something that looks like it should be in a museum? Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight, Taemin said. No one expects a princess to travel in a garbage hauler. Bora called from the cockpit. Strap in. We're leaving before someone asks uncomfortable questions. The ship lurched into motion. Alarms immediately started blaring. Station control was hailing them. Bora ignored it all, pushing the engines to maximum. They shot out of the bay like a bullet, weaving through traffic with reckless abandon. Warning shots, Bora yelled. They figured out we're not supposed to be leaving. Station defense turrets opened fire. Energy blasts cut through space around them. Bora threw the ship into a barrel roll that made Gina grab her seat with both hands. The princess looked terrified and furious at the same time. Taemin leaned into the cockpit. Can you lose them? Can I lose them? Watch this. Bora dove toward the station's ring structure, flying so close to the surface that Taemin could see individual windows. She threaded the ship through a maintenance tunnel barely wider than their wingspan. Behind them, the pursuing security ships were too large to follow. They burst out the other side and engaged the jump drive. Space twisted, and suddenly, they were in hyperspace. The station far behind. Bora laughed. Like old times, Taemin. Except now you're kidnapping royalty instead of rescuing hostages. I'm not kidnapped, Gina said coldly, though her hands still gripped the seat. And that was the most insane piece of flying I've ever witnessed. Thank you, Bora called back cheerfully. Taemin had identified a lead during his investigation. An abandoned mining facility on the frontier planet, HFY 4. Records showed the syndicate had purchased it through a shell company. If they could get evidence from there, they could expose the conspiracy. The flight took 2 days. During that time, Gina and Taemin talked more than they ever had on the station. Without the formal protocols and watching eyes, they could speak freely. Gina told him about growing up in the Valoran palace, how her older brother was being groomed to be emperor, a warrior king who would expand their territory, how her sister commanded fleets and won battles, how Gina spent her childhood in libraries, studying history and mathematics while her siblings trained for war. My father tolerates me, Gina said quietly, but he doesn't respect me. To him, I'm the spare heir, the one who thinks too much and fights too little. What do you want? Taemin asked. The question seemed to surprise her. What do I want? No one's ever asked me that. Then I'm asking. Forget duty and expectations. What does Gina want? She was quiet for a long time. I want to change things. The Valoran Empire conquers planets, subjugates species. We call it bringing order. But it's just violence with a pretty name. I want to reform our system. Make us a force for actual peace. But no one listens to the scholar princess. They should, Taemin said. Warriors know how to win battles. But scholars know how to win the peace that follows. The galaxy needs both. Gina smiled, a real smile he hadn't seen before. You're very strange for a soldier, Taemin. Most warriors I know hate when I talk politics. I was a disaster relief worker before I was a soldier. I've seen what wars leave behind. The destroyed cities, the refugees, the children who lost everything. Warriors end wars, but people like you prevent them. That's more important. Their conversation was interrupted by Bora's voice. Approaching HFY 4, it's as ugly as advertised. The planet below was a wasteland of gray rock and toxic atmosphere. The mining facility clung to a canyon edge, a sprawl of buildings connected by enclosed walkways. Long abandoned, or so the records said. But as they descended, Taemin spotted something. Fresh landing marks. Active power signatures. The facility wasn't abandoned. At all. This is a trap, Gina said, seeing the same evidence. Probably, Taemin agreed. But we need that evidence. And now, we know the syndicate is using this place actively. That's valuable information. They landed a kilometer from the facility and approached on foot. wearing environmental suits against the toxic air. Bo-Ra stayed with the ship, engines ready for a quick escape. Inside the facility, they found exactly what Taemin feared and hoped for. Proof. Computer systems filled with syndicate communications. Plans for the assassination. Orders to frame the Theron Confederacy for Gina's death. Financial records showing bribes to officials across 3 systems. This is enough. Gina breathed, copying data to a portable drive. This proves everything. Then the alarm started. They know we're here, Taemin said, drawing his weapon. Move. Now. They ran through the corridors, heading back toward the exit. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed. Their pursuers were catching up. Taemin and Gina burst out of the facility into the toxic wasteland. Bo-Ra had the ship already moving toward them, but between them and safety stood a man in combat armor, flanked by a dozen syndicate soldiers. The man removed his helmet. He was human, scarred and grim. His name tag read, Byung-Ho. Corporal Taemin, Byung-Ho said. I've heard about you. The loyal soldier boy. Playing hero for a princess who'll never actually care about you. Commander Byung-Ho, Taemin replied, recognizing the rank insignia. Former human military. Now, working for criminals. That's a disappointing career path. Byung-Ho laughed. The consortium doesn't pay well enough. The syndicate does. And all I have to do is kill 1 idealistic corporal and 1 naive princess. Easy money. His soldiers raised their weapons. Taemin counted them quickly. 14 total. All with better gear than him. He and Gina were outnumbered and outgunned. Bo-Ra's ship descended behind them, ramp lowering. But the syndicate soldiers had already locked targeting on it. Gina, Taemin said quietly. When I move, you run for the ship. Don't stop. Don't look back. What? No. I'm not leaving you two. That's an order. His voice was harder than she'd ever heard it. You have the evidence. You matter more than I do. Run. Before Gina could protest, Taemin moved. He threw a smoke grenade that erupted between them and the syndicate soldiers. Then he charged straight at Byung-Ho. The soldiers fired blindly into the smoke. Taemin used the chaos, his knowledge of human combat tactics from Earth. He was faster than they expected, more aggressive, more willing to take risks. He heard Gina screaming his name, heard Bo-Ra yelling for her to get on the ship. Good. She was escaping. That was all that mattered. Taemin fought like a man with nothing to lose. He took down 3 soldiers in the first 30 seconds. Byung-Ho engaged him directly, and the 2 humans traded blows with deadly precision. You can't win this. Byung-Ho snarled. There's too many of us. Don't have to win, Taemin gasped, blocking a strike. Just have to give her time. Through the smoke, he saw Bo-Ra's ship lifting off, Gina safely aboard. Relief flooded through him. She'd made it. The evidence was safe. Then something hit him from behind. Hard. He went down, his vision blurring. Multiple soldiers pinned him, their weapons aimed at his head. Byung-Ho stood over him. Brave. Stupid. But brave. The syndicate will make an example of you. Taemin smiled through the blood in his mouth. Too late. She's gone. You lost. We'll find her. Kill her. You can try. Taemin's smile widened. But you've never seen a human with something to protect. We're really hard to stop. Byung-Ho raised his weapon. Not hard enough. The last thing Taemin saw before everything went dark was the sky. And somewhere in that sky, a ship carrying a princess he'd sworn to protect. Mission accomplished, he thought, as consciousness faded. Wherever the darkness took him, he went knowing Gina was alive. For a soldier from Earth, that was enough. Bo-Ra's ship burst through the atmosphere of Escort 4 at maximum speed. In the passenger compartment, Princess Gina sat frozen, staring at nothing. Her hands still clutched the data drive with all the evidence they'd gathered. The evidence Tae-min had died to protect. Princess, Bo-ra called from the cockpit, her voice tight with emotion. I'm heading to the nearest consortium outpost. We'll broadcast the evidence from there. That's what Tae-min would want. Gina didn't respond. Her mind kept replaying the last moments. Tae-min throwing himself at 14 armed soldiers. His voice saying she mattered more than he did. The sound of weapons fire as the ship lifted off. She'd screamed at Bo-ra to go back, but the pilot had refused, tears streaming down her face. He was my friend, Bo-ra had said, and he gave his life to save yours. Don't make it meaningless. My friend. Don't make it meaningless. My friend, my friend, my friend. The outpost appeared on their sensors 3 hours later. It was small, barely more than a refueling station, but it had communications equipment. Bo-ra landed hard, not bothering with gentleness. We need to move fast, Bo-ra said. The syndicate knows where we're going. They rushed to the communication center. The station master, a confused Felian, tried to protest their unauthorized use of his equipment. But Bo-ra simply pushed past him. She began uploading the evidence to every major news network in the consortium. Gina stood at the communication console and began recording a message. Her voice was steady despite everything. Years of royal training kept her composed even when her heart was breaking. I am Princess Gina of the Valoran Empire. What you're seeing is evidence of a conspiracy by the Caliph Syndicate to assassinate me and start a war between my people and the Theran Confederacy. This conspiracy has already cost many lives, including my royal guards. She paused, her composure cracking slightly. Corporal Tae-min, a human soldier, gave his life to ensure this evidence reached you. He did this, knowing he would die. He did it because he believed preventing a war mattered more than his own survival. The galaxy calls humans weak. Humans call themselves fragile, but I've learned the truth. Humans are the strongest species I've ever encountered. Their strength just looks different than ours. The message went out across the consortium. Within hours, it was the biggest story in known space. The revelation of the conspiracy shocked governments and citizens alike. But what captured attention even more was the image of Princess Gina's face as she spoke about Tae-min. The grief, the respect, the raw emotion. The news networks played it constantly. Valoran princess mourns. Human hero. Conspiracy exposed by human soldiers' sacrifice. The corporal who saved a princess and prevented a war. What the networks didn't show, what happened after Gina finished the recording, was the moment she finally broke. Away from the cameras, in a small room in the outpost, she collapsed. The tears came like a flood. All the grief and guilt and loss she'd been holding back. Bo-ra found her there, curled up on the floor, crying like her heart would never mend. The pilot sat beside her, putting an arm around the princess, and cried with her. He was supposed to live, Gina sobbed. I was supposed to protect him. I'm royalty. I'm supposed to matter more. Why did he do it? Why did he think I was worth dying for? Because that's what Tae-min did, Bo-ra said softly. He saw someone who needed protecting, and nothing else mattered. Not rank, not species, not even his own life. She squeezed Gina's shoulder. He was my friend for 5 years, saved my life twice, never asked for anything in return. That's just who he was. The moment of grief was captured by a security camera in the room. The footage wasn't meant to be public, but somehow, it leaked. Probably someone at the outpost sold it to news networks. Within a day, the galaxy saw Princess Gina crying for a dead human soldier. The image went viral across 1,000 worlds. For most species, it was simply a tragic story. But for humans, scattered across the consortium in small numbers, working in jobs the galaxy considered beneath everyone else, it was something different. They saw one of their own. dead protecting someone who trusted him. They saw a princess crying for a human when the rest of the galaxy barely considered humans worth noticing, and something ancient woke up in the human species. Something from the time before space travel, before civilization, before language. A primal drive that said, "Our own have been harmed, someone we protect is grieving. This will not stand." On Earth, the human government tried to maintain calm. This is a tragic incident, but we must not act rashly. We are working through diplomatic channels, but humanity had never been good at following orders when their hearts were engaged. Individual humans began making their own decisions. A cargo ship captain diverted from his route. A security officer quit her job and bought a weapon. A retired soldier came out of retirement. A teacher liquidated her savings and booked passage on a military transport. They came from Earth, from Mars colony, from the mining stations in the belt, from the handful of human settlements scattered across consortium space. They came as individuals, in small groups, in whatever ships they could find. They didn't come as an army. They came as humans who'd seen Gina crying and decided that whoever made that happen would pay. The consortium tried to stop them. This is not a sanctioned military action. Humans do not have authorization for armed intervention. But how do you stop thousands of individuals, each making their own choice, each traveling separately, each determined to reach the same destination? The consortium couldn't arrest them all, couldn't turn back every ship, couldn't stop what was already in motion. In the outpost medical center, a miracle occurred. A badly injured human was brought in by a neutral transport. He'd been found floating in an escape pod near Escort 4, more dead than alive. The medical staff worked for 6 hours to stabilize him. When they checked his identification, someone gasped. "It's him. It's Corporal Tae-min." Bo-Ra ran to the medical center, dragging Gina with her. They stood outside the surgery room, watching through the window as doctors worked. Tae-min was unconscious, his body a mess of injuries. But his heart was beating. "How?" Gina whispered. "I saw him fall. There were so many of them." The transport captain who'd found him explained. "My ship picked up a distress beacon. Found him in a pod programmed to reach the nearest station. Someone must have put him in it." Later, they'd learn the full story. After Tae-min lost consciousness, one of the syndicate soldiers had been a recent recruit, a young Kanthari named Vex. He'd joined the syndicate for money, but had no stomach for murder. When Byung-ho ordered Tae-min executed, Vex had quietly dragged the unconscious human to an escape pod instead, a small act of mercy that saved a life. But Tae-min wasn't out of danger. The doctors said the next 48 hours were critical. His injuries were severe. He might not wake up. And if he did, he might never fully recover. Gina refused to leave his side. Ambassador Kwansik arrived at the outpost, along with Velaran security ships. He tried to convince her to return home, but she wouldn't budge. "I left him once," Gina said, her voice like iron. "I won't do it again." She sat beside Tae-min's bed while machines kept him alive. She held his hand, careful not to disturb the IV lines and monitoring equipment. She talked to him, telling him about the conspiracy being exposed, about the syndicate leadership being arrested, about how his sacrifice had mattered, and she told him something else. "The humans are coming, Tae-min, your people. They saw me crying for you, and now they're coming. Thousands of them. The consortium is terrified. They don't understand why humans would do this. But I understand. I've learned what you tried to teach me. Humans bond quickly. Humans protect their own. And somehow, in the time we had together, you made me one of yours." Outside the medical center, the first human ships began arriving. They came armed. They came angry. They came ready to tear apart the syndicate piece by piece. The consortium tried diplomacy. "This is not necessary. The conspiracy has been exposed. Justice will be served through proper channels. A human colonel, arrived on one of the first military vessels, gave the consortium's response. You call us weak. You call us harmless. You give us the jobs nobody else wants and tell us to be grateful. But one of ours died, protecting someone who trusted him. And you expect us to just accept it and move on? The syndicate will be prosecuted. There will be justice. The colonel smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Oh, there'll be justice. Human justice. The kind that doesn't wait for committees and trials. The kind that happens when you hurt our people. More ships arrived every hour. The consortium scrambled to contain the situation. But it was like trying to hold back a flood with a cup. Humanity, fragmented and scattered across the galaxy, had found a common cause. And that cause was simple. Someone had made Princess Gina cry for one of their own. The syndicate would learn what happened when you made that mistake. In his hospital bed, Taemin's vital signs remained steady. The doctors cautiously upgraded his prognosis. He might survive after all. But even if he died, even if he never woke up, his sacrifice had already changed everything. The galaxy had called humans harmless. Now the galaxy was about to learn the difference between harmless and peaceful. And learn what happened when peaceful people decided they'd had enough. The Caliph Syndicate controlled 3 systems through fear, bribery, and violence. They had operated for 40 years, growing wealthy from illegal weapons trade, smuggling, and political manipulation. They owned politicians, judges, and military officers across a dozen species. They thought themselves untouchable. They had never faced angry humans before. The first syndicate base to fall was on Talkor Station, a hub for their weapons trafficking. A group of 50 human ex-soldiers arrived, studied the defenses for 6 hours, then went in. They didn't use overwhelming force. They used precision. They knew which doors led where, which guards were bought, which officials would look the other way. The raid took 30 minutes. They captured 73 syndicate members, destroyed the weapons stockpile, and seized financial records. Not a single innocent bystander was harmed. The humans left a message painted on the wall. For Taemin. The consortium demanded the humans be arrested for vigilante action. But before they could act, the financial records were published. They showed which consortium officials had taken bribes from the syndicate. The scandal paralyzed the government. Suddenly, no one was eager to defend the syndicate. The second base fell 3 days later, then the third, then the fourth. Each time, humans arrived in small groups, never as an organized military. They shared information freely between groups, coordinating through encrypted channels. They helped each other, guided each other, protected each other. The syndicate tried to fight back. They sent their best operatives to ambush human teams. But humans fought differently than other species expected. They were patient. They adapted. They used tactics from wars the galaxy had never studied, strategies from a planet that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of conflict. More importantly, humans didn't fight for territory or profit. They fought because one of their own had been hurt, and someone they'd adopted as their own had cried. That kind of motivation made them relentless in ways the syndicate couldn't match. Commander Byung-ho watched his organization crumble. He'd thought killing Taemin would be the end of a problem. Instead, it was the beginning of a nightmare. He sent messages to his contacts, begging for help. No one answered. The syndicate's allies had abandoned them. It's not even their military doing this, Byung-ho raged to his remaining officers. It's civilians, cargo pilots, retired soldiers. How are we losing to disorganized rabble? One of his officers, a scarred Theron, answered quietly. They're not disorganized. They're decentralized. Every human group makes their own decisions, but they all have the same goal. You can't cut off the head of a beast that has no head. And they're not rabble. They're humans from Earth, a species that conquered their own world through pure stubbornness. They're weak. Class D protected species. Protected because the consortium feared what they'd become if they weren't restricted. We just found out why. In the medical center on the outpost, Tae-min finally opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Princess Gina, asleep in a chair beside his bed, her hand still holding his. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept properly in days. "Princess," Tae-min whispered, his voice rough from disuse. Gina jerked awake. When she saw him conscious, emotions flooded her face. Relief, joy, and something deeper that Tae-min couldn't quite name. She leaned forward, tears streaming down her face again. But these were different tears than before. "You're alive," she breathed. "The doctors said you might not wake up. You've been unconscious for 3 weeks. 3 weeks?" Tae-min tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his body. The syndicate. The evidence. The evidence is everywhere. The conspiracy is exposed. The syndicate is being destroyed as we speak. Gina helped him settle back into the bed. "By your people. By humans." She told him everything. About the broadcast. About her tears being seen across the galaxy. About thousands of humans converging on syndicate operations, dismantling them piece by piece. About the 3 systems that had been syndicate strongholds, now being liberated by human action. Tae-min listened in stunned silence. They shouldn't have done that. It's not sanctioned. They'll face legal consequences. Legal consequences? Gina laughed. A sound, mixed with tears. The consortium tried to arrest them, but the humans published the evidence of corruption. Half the consortium government is under investigation now. No one has the authority to stop your people. And those who do have authority are too busy trying to save their own careers. Ambassador Kwansik entered the room, his expression complex. "Corporal Tae-min, you've caused quite the situation. I apologize, Ambassador. I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize. You exposed a conspiracy that would have killed millions. The Valoran Empire owes you a debt we can never repay." Kwansik's voice softened. "And you've shown us that we badly misjudged humanity. The galaxy has made a grave error in how we treat your species." A doctor came in to check Tae-min's vitals, shooing everyone out so he could rest. But before Gina left, she leaned close and whispered, "Thank you for not dying. I don't think I could have endured that." Over the next 2 weeks, as Tae-min recovered, the syndicate fell apart completely. Their leadership was captured by a joint human operation. Among the prisoners was Commander Byung-ho, who'd been found hiding in a cargo container trying to flee the system. He was brought to the outpost, where Tae-min was now well enough to sit up and take visitors. The 2 former humans faced each other through a security barrier. "You destroyed everything," Byung-ho said bitterly. "The syndicate was powerful. We had money, connections, protection, all gone because of you, not because of me." Tae-min replied calmly. "Because you threatened someone under my protection. That's all it took. One princess, one alien girl who you barely knew. And you were willing to die for her? Yes. That's what humans do. We bond. We protect. We don't abandon our own." Tae-min leaned forward. "You forgot that. Byung-ho, you forgot what it means to be human. You sold your loyalty for money. That's why you lost." Byung-ho was silent for a long moment. "The galaxy will see this as a threat. Humans rising up, ignoring laws, taking justice into their own hands. They'll try to suppress your people even more. Maybe. Or maybe they'll finally understand that calling us harmless was always a mistake. We're not harmless. We're just selective about when we cause harm." Tae-min stood to leave. "You'll face trial now. Under consortium law. I recommend you cooperate. Humans might be forgiving if you help convict the rest of the syndicate leadership." After Byung-ho was taken away, Tae-min walked slowly through the outpost. His body still ached, but he was healing. He found Gina on an observation deck, watching ships come and go. "The human fleet is leaving," she said as he joined her. "Their job is done. The syndicate is broken. They shouldn't have come at all. This will cause problems for humanity and the consortium. Perhaps. But I'm going to make sure it causes the right kind of problems." Gina turned to face him. "I've been in constant communication with my father, the Emperor. I've told him everything. About the conspiracy. About your sacrifice. About what humans did. He's agreed to sponsor a motion in the Consortium Council to reclassify humanity." "Reclassify? Humans won't be Class D protected species anymore. You'll be recognized as a full member species, with all the rights and responsibilities that brings. Military service, diplomatic posts, real positions of authority." She smiled. "And my father has offered you a position as Chief of Royal Security. If you'll accept it." "Number." Taemin stared at her. "I'm a corporal. I'm not qualified to. You protected me when no one else could. You exposed a conspiracy that could have started a war. You inspired your entire species to act. If that doesn't qualify you, nothing does." Gina's expression became serious. "But I won't order you to accept. This is your choice." Taemin thought about Earth. About the small apartment he'd left behind. About the simple life he'd had before all this. Part of him wanted to go back to that simplicity. But he'd learned something during this ordeal. He'd learned that sometimes, the bonds you form matter more than the life you planned. He'd protected Gina not because she was royalty, but because she'd become important to him. Someone worth fighting for. Worth dying for. "I'll accept," Taemin said. "On one condition. Any humans who want positions in Valoran security are given fair consideration. We take care of our own." "Agreed. I wouldn't expect anything less from you." 3 months later, at a ceremony broadcast across the consortium, Princess Gina stood before thousands of delegates and made a speech that would be remembered for generations. "The galaxy called humans harmless," she began. "We saw their emotions as weakness, their bonds as vulnerability, their compassion as a fatal flaw. We were wrong about all of it. The taking Lan, after, we were wrong about all of it." She gestured to where Taemin stood in his new uniform, decorated with honors from both the Valoran Empire and the Consortium. "This human risked everything to protect me, not because of duty or orders, but because he'd decided I mattered. When he fell, his people rose up, not as an army, but as individuals who'd seen one of their own harmed and someone they'd adopted as their own grieve." Gina's voice grew stronger. "3 systems fell because I cried for him. The Caliph Syndicate, which had operated with impunity for decades, was dismantled in weeks, not through overwhelming force, but through the focused determination of a species that refuses to abandon those they care about." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humans aren't harmless. They're peaceful until given a reason not to be. They're gentle until someone they love is threatened. They're forgiving until you cross a line that can't be uncrossed. The galaxy has learned this lesson at great cost. Let us never forget it." The applause was thunderous. Even species that had looked down on humans joined in. The galaxy had learned something important. Never underestimate a species from a death world. And never, ever, harm someone they've chosen to protect. After the ceremony, Taemin and Gina stood on a balcony overlooking the consortium capital. The city sparkled with lights from 1,000 worlds. "Do you regret it?" Gina asked quietly. "Everything that happened? Your injuries? Nearly dying?" Taemin considered the question carefully. "No. I did what I thought was right. I'd do it again, even knowing what it would cost, especially knowing what it would cost." He looked at her. "You asked me once what humans are. We're the species that decides someone matters and then moves the galaxy to protect them. That's not weakness. That's our strength." Gina smiled. the first truly peaceful smile he'd seen from her. The galaxy called you harmless. 3 systems fell when I cried for you. I think they've learned their mistake. Anything. Maybe. Or maybe they'll forget, and we'll have to teach the lesson again someday. Then we'll teach it together. Chief of Security. Together, Princess. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city below. The human ships were departing, returning to their scattered homes across the galaxy. But they would remember this. All of humanity would remember the day they'd risen up to protect one of their own, and the princess who'd cried for him. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Humans might be called harmless. They might be considered weak. They might be dismissed and underestimated. But harm someone they've claimed as their own, and you'll discover why Deathworld species should never be provoked. You'll learn the difference between harmless and peaceful, and you'll understand, too late, that humans are only gentle when they choose to be, and when they choose otherwise, systems fall.